the bike became the starting point for this energy efficient person. So it was a bike with, welcome back, do you want to continue?
Us, okay, you're doing great.
A bike with energy efficient person with small feet, which represents a small footprint. And then we went from there with a big heart, and there's a big heart here. And then we started talking about the house, like where would this person live? So it's a small home that's situated to capture good solar potential with a green roof, some native trees, maple tree, and because they have common sense, in addition to some of the technology they have there, solar, whatnot, there's a clothesline, common sense. And then what type of work this person does, because an engineer is also, has a tradesperson, they're calculated and they're engineer, they work on a computer that's powered by, you know, wind and renewable energy because it's cutting edge right at the front there. And their work inspires all sorts of ideas, and this is a compact fluorescent light bulb representing new ideas. Did I capture it all? Jump in if I missed something.
The only thing you missed, the guy on the bike's got a bread basket which has locally produced food, which represents, again, local economies of scale. On the top, the guy's got a mullet. I just threw that in for fun. Yeah, bringing back things that may have been forgotten. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
You're starting there?
So it was really interesting. It was hard, this is my observation, it was hard to draw what this person looked like. It seemed to be less relevant what the person looked like, more as to what the surroundings and actions were. So.
And the female-male thing was sort of that the male side tends to be on the technical side of energy efficiency, while the women tend to be the nurture practitioner behavior type.
Now those qualities, that characteristics you just listed, how many of them would you say were also appropriate to be used when, especially as we dealt with heritage yesterday? What similar kind of when we were talking about kind of beliefs and what heritage, the importance of heritage and the importance of heritage homes. What similarity do these characteristics have with that conversation about heritage?
Good looking.
Number one, good looking. What else?
As we were designing the house, we were talking about the practicalities of it too, and the common sense elements, and that was incorporated in how it was built.
Right. Yeah, it seems to me there are quite a number of them in terms of the common sense approach, the strong convictions, because there's strong convictions in terms of from the heritage. I'm looking at the heritage buildings, the whole idea about being part of their natural environment. The heritage homes are part of their natural environment as opposed to being just another block, a cinder block. And so there's some interesting similarities between some of the things we talked about yesterday in terms of heritage homes and heritage buildings and the characteristics of the energy efficiency persons.
Resourceful, well-read, wisdom and knowledge. Those were also in here, so
good.
I think those would apply.
Good, excellent. Okay, anybody from the heritage group have anything to say about this picture?
From your heritage, or want from your heritage counterpart. We thought about it as our compromise wish, really, because it took a while to wrap our head around it. And it's a two-part. So leeway, admit that in some circumstances heritage is not the first consideration. So that's our compromise wish.
Okay, it's not the first consideration.
Correct.
In some
In some sense.
In certain circumstances, it's not the first.
Admit that in some circumstances heritage is not the first consideration.
Okay. That sounds reasonable.
I just want control.
Okay, well that's our energy efficiency side. Let's see our heritage side. Who is going to describe our heritage process and side and characteristics?
Yeah, I guess that would be me.
I'll do it. I'll hold it up.
Thanks for volunteering.
Is this your drawing? I'll hold it up.
Okay. We
in not, we had a lot of trouble with this. So, trying to come up with characteristics or trying to come up with physical representations. And one of our ideas was just to fill that page with lots of different people, because it's, you know, hard to make a caricature of one type of thing. And we came up with a lot of contrasts. It would almost have been easier to draw the two than just the one. The heritage person is more focused on the past, where it seems the energy person is more focused on the future. We have the stop sign as the, you know, I'm having trouble with it. Some of the things that we have represented there are, so the stop sign, so that, and that's partly to, I think, speaks to the frustration that maybe some of the energy efficient people feel about wanting to move forward. But also as a recommendation not to rush forward, to stop and think about it, and is this the best fit or the best idea, or is it a fad? We have the older woman drinking a cup of tea, because apparently we've had from good source, the Historical Society always stops for tea breaks. We have a judge's gavel up in the corner, in terms of, because in a lot of cases it's the Historical Society that can pass judgment in terms of whether something can move forward or not. Other ideas that we had were a Lincoln hat. We have them both representing middle or upper class people, because lower class people can't afford to live in a heritage house. What else? And we had a fairly interesting discussion about how energy efficiency is a little easier to sell because it's full of hard numbers and hard facts. If you do this, then this will happen. And it's easier for people usually to see the value in that. Numbers are easier to understand. And that the Heritage Society has a harder job because it's harder to quantify the value of history. And that was turning into an interesting discussion. The conception that we came up with, and we had trouble with that too, was time, which comes back to the stop sign. So time to do the research, time to look at all the options.
Excellent. Very well done. And what are your observations from the energy efficiency side on the depiction? What do you see? What are your observations about the depiction of the heritage side of things?
The energy people seem to have a better self-concept about being better looking.
Yeah, it's a better looking thing going on.
Yeah.
The one person looks a little malnourished.
All her food goes into this, the energy bill.
Well, both sides seem to have.
She's a crack addict.
Was there even such thing as crack?
I was thinking maybe the guy
Come to my
was
cocaine field, mate.
When he's talking out of the one side of his face, maybe when he's over here, he's talking at the other. I don't know. Just
Absent.
Because I drew that.
Yeah, that works. I've tried it. It's good. Really good.
I didn't know what I was trying.
Yeah, you did a great job. You did a great job.
Just see the video editing involved with this. It's being hilarious.
So what are your observations about our little couple here and if we look at these two side by side, our heritage couple and our energy efficiency world, what are the connections?
One's got a laptop and one's got a stop
And
sign.
the stop sign and the bike connect.
The old lady's got little feet too.
The small
Little footprint. She's conscious of her footprints.
How they're dressed.
Just in a more out there kind of artsy
Yeah.
interpretation of this is that there is this stop, there's no motion here, or a perception that there's no motion, that there's no give, take, cycle, whereas as this seems to talk about movement and cycle and constant renewal.
I think that sounds too.
Just-
Because like heritage people always like to think about what they could do, and then the energy efficient people think of what, or do what they think like they actually they could do and do and do, whereas they just think,
Oh, so we got thinkers and doers.
yeah, we have fingers and doers.
Yeah, but
Losers and fighters.
I think you would find like both groups living in that same house having that same lifestyle.
Yeah.
What else?
Both I think are appreciative of what they have and what their world has to give them.
Both groups, the passion of both groups is kind of, which is what I think makes the discussion difficult.
True.
I think Michelle's brought something that I've written down here. You talked about them being focused on the past and on the future. And we've got that third group that is the present, and which is where we're at here, is the past, present, and future, and how do we respect all three?
So here we have the compromise, which from the heritage side is let's take some time to look at things. Let's take some time to research things. Let's take some time to interpret those numbers. Let's take some time to quantify some of the things that we're talking about, because the heritage people are living in are a world in which it's very difficult to quantify the value of the history, of the heritage, of the background. Meanwhile, we have a world on the other side that's got lots of numbers, lots of systems, lots of evaluations, lots of different ways of assessing impact. So we have, how can the energy efficiency side with their tools and their systems help the heritage side look at value in a different way? Provide a way of understanding the value of the home in heritage terms. How could the other side understand systems and the technologies and all that help the heritage side? Any ideas?
As the world is changing and things don't stay the same, so some technologies can help maintain the parts and histories that you want to keep. There's a way
To use the new technology to
help
preserve the
sustain
past.
the past.
Sometimes in these new sort of testing technologies, can explode sort of conventional myths. Like in looking at heritage buildings, there's all sorts of what do you call them, common knowledge assumptions like that. Which we've been told all along. The CHC tells us, and that heat losses through the windows. We see from whatever program Josh was using, that not necessarily the case. Conventional knowledge that heat loss is greatest to the roof as heat rises, seems intuitive. But again, when it comes to numbers, and perhaps you have to revisit that. You wouldn't think that the walls are the major radiator in such a building, but perhaps. And then, like, we've had help from, like, you're looking at these sort of traditional ways of natural ventilation, natural light, like in our commercial office building, 1908 office building, where we have all operable double hung windows, awning windows, casement windows. The whole building is this big baffle. It's in the middle of the financial district, but it's open on three sides because there's a lane and a courtyard and the frontage. And now we're sort of assuming, well, we know that when the building was built, 1908, it had to operate with essentially natural light, supplemented by electric, and absolute natural ventilation. There was no mechanical ventilation other than ceiling fans. There was no cooling. The chiller hadn't even been invented yet. And there's a whole range of skyscrapers between 1880 and 1925 or so. made possible by the elevator, which was originally steam powered and then electric. All those buildings were designed to be naturally lit and ventilated. And so we're very excited about rediscovering all those opportunities in that building. But what the engineers, so the energy efficiency experts, can do is actually look at some of those assumptions about, like you think opening the window will work, but when you start crunching the numbers as to how many times a year you can open it, what other detrimental things come through, like those sort of factors that you can measure, you see whether it's a way to test your assumptions about things that seem, what heritage systems that seem applicable in again. And it's a way to test those things.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
I agree that I think you should put the numbers to where it's useful. Like, we talk about natural ventilation, but is it more cost effective to run a fan in there and get fresh air? No one's going to open that window when it's -20. Again, we need air. I mean, we could probably stand a little bit of fresh air in here right now. People are getting tired, they're sleepy. There isn't enough fresh air in here. When you open the window, well, today we could, but otherwise nobody would open it. Whereas in a modern building, when you look at the numbers, well, it makes sense, just run a fan. But I don't think we should be putting numbers to a value of a heritage building. I mean, those are hard numbers. You can't assess the quality of a building with numbers.
So here we have the wonderful challenge, and before I go into that, Les, you had your hand up and saying, when I was asking how can the systems approach and the technology and the other assets of the energy efficiency side help the heritage side?
It's okay, it's already been brought up.
It's been brought up?
Did they answer the question of what?
Time to research, time to look what solutions there could be. And again, I think here we have a situation where you have the tangible and the intangible. And we're going to be running into this in our society for quite some time. Because we have, as I said yesterday, we're looking at towns and villages and cities, looking at their intangible assets being worth 70% and their tangible assets worth 30%. How do they quantify that 70%? With its reputation, that is community spirit, that is all those things. So we are definitely in a time when we're looking at both how do the tangible and intangible worlds actually connect to each other and help each other, rather than because when we try to argue intangible with numbers, it just doesn't work. That was the dialogue we heard today, and about the numbers were being and very powerful use of numbers and very correct use of numbers. But you can't come back at that with them. Well, it's about the heritage. It's about the value of those sills. It's about and so it's how do we and we're not going to answer that today. But I think what we can see is very much that when I look at that energy efficiency world, I do see heritage inside that world, and I see similar values inside that world. And I think and at the same time, we have our old hippie chick there. She really, she's got her cause. She really does